Hello, welcome to this week's clinical case. And I suppose I've chosen this clinical case this week because there's been a bit of a conversation between me and another endodontist about, obturations that might look long or they might look short. And, just it transpires that this case came up this week. And although the obturation looks quite short, I think personally that this is to length. Really, to explain this, essentially the radiographic apex, that's the end of the tooth you can see on the radiograph, isn't usually the same as the anatomical apex, because usually the constriction found in the canal space is a bit further back. So let's just present the case very briefly. This is a radiograph of a lower right 6. This is an external referral. This was sent to me by another dentist, and you can see here that there is a leaking filling. So we've got a composite filling in the tooth. It's got secondary decay underneath, and there is widening of the laminar dura. And in fact, when this filling was removed, it was obvious that the canal space was exposed, and therefore, the pulp was necrotic. And as we move over to the tooth now, you can see I'm just about to remove that said GIC temporary dressing, and again, just giving it a bit of a clean out. And when we look inside, we can see there's obvious canal spaces there. So in the first instance, what I'm going to do is I am going to fill the canal space up with sodium hypochlorite, and then I'm going to take the working length of the mesiolingual. Okay. And when I place the size 10K file and the apex locator together, I can see that I'm not quite reaching anywhere near the apex. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to push this too far. I'm going to pull it out, see how far I've got, and then I'm going to shape the coronal to mid third with this glide path file here. This is a HighFlex 1503. We're going to make sure that's all cleaned out, and then I'm going to use my master apical file just to coronally shape this mesiolingual canal. I'm not going to go too far with this because I don't want to ledge the canal itself, and it just opens it up. Okay, and usually what happens is you can negotiate down even further. And what I've done here is I've got a size 10K file and made a little bend at the end. And as I just gently push this ham file to length, it is now getting a bit. It's negotiating further after we've shaped the coronal to mid third, but it feels like that the root here is quite long. So when we put the apex locator on, we're a little bit closer to 0, but we're not quite all the way to the end. So what I need to do is I just need to quickly remove the rubber bung from the end of the file, and then I'm going to push it even further. Okay, this gives me a little bit more latitude here. And as I negotiate this size 10K file to length, we can see now that I am getting a little bit further. We put the apex locator on and we are through. We're through the apex. That's a good thing. And I'm just going to back up the size 10K file a little bit more until we reach the 0 reading. And then what I personally like to do is when I reach the 0 reading is I like to push it through again and then back it up again. And what this does is it gives me like kind of a second opinion backstop reading, so I know that I am genuinely at the 0 point on the apex locator. And as we remove the file to check the working length measurement, you can see that the mesiolingual is at 25. So, we're on our way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my glide path file. I'm going to shape that up to 25. You can see that these files are 25 in length. There's no rubber stopper. We're going to just push it all the way to the end, which I suppose in a way sometimes makes me feel a little bit nervous, mainly for file fracture. But I think in this case, if you're careful enough, you've got less of a risk of fracturing a file, essentially, if you're just really, really careful. And then I'm going to try and just recapitulate with the size 10K file, because I know it was a bit difficult. And I am getting a little bit stuck down this mesiolingual canal. So if I can't quite get to the end with my recapitulation file, so that's the hand file I use to take a working length, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just drop down a diameter, and I'm using this size 8D finder, and I'm still getting a little bit stuck. I can't quite get to the end. So again, I use my little trick where I use a tiny little bend at the end of this D finder, and now as I negotiate this size 8 in the mesiolingual canal, it goes to length quite nicely. So once we're at length, once we've got past that kind of stubborn spot, usually a ledge, what you don't do is you don't pull it straight out. You're just going to move it in and out, and you're going to try and just keep this canal nice and patent and open. So just nice kind of in and out movements just to make sure this canal is all lovely and patent. So once I know that I've got patency with a size 8D finder, I'm going to move up to my glide path file again, and in this case I'm going to use it in T mode, so it's kind of a reciprocation mode, but again I'm not quite getting to the 0 reading on this glide path file, and again I don't want to push this any further. So what I'm thinking to myself now, that maybe going from an 8 to a 15 was probably a bit too much of a jump. You know, sometimes it's fine, but in this case it's too much of a jump, too much of a diameter change. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move down with a size 10K file again with a little bend at the end. And as I use this size 10K file, I do get patency again, so I'm moving up a little bit. But it's at this point I'm thinking to myself that maybe the mesolingual has got a tight join with the MB canal, and what I don't want to do is I don't want to push this any further. So I'm going to move away from the mesolingual for now, and I'm going to concentrate my efforts on the MB canal. And at some point what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and check confluence between these two canals. Obviously, if the canal does join this mesolingual canal, and we're trying to push hand files and rotary files down there, there's a real risk of causing iatrogenic damage. So it's best to sort of abandon the mesolingual for now. We know it's patent, so we know we're pretty much on our way with that. But let's move over to the MB canal to see if we can get to 0 reading on that, and then just check confluence at a later date. So now we're going to try and negotiate down the mesobuccal canal. I'm going to go straight for the 8D finder because I knew the mesolingual was difficult. And as soon as I place this 8D finder down the mesobuccal canal, I can feel like that I'm getting a little bit stuck. So maybe I'm at 0, maybe I'm not at 0. The best thing to do in this case is just hook it up to the apex locator, just get like a provisional reading. And as we hook the D finder up here, we can see that we're a little bit too far off 0. So again, I don't want to push too far. I'm going to bring out that D finder, and I'm going to shape the coronal third with the glide path file of 1503, and then obviously the 25 variable taper, just to open up that kind of canal space. And as we aspirate and irrigate the mesobuccal canal, you'll notice here that the mesolingual it looks like it's confluent, because when we irrigate and aspirate the mesobuccal, the mesolingual also irrigates and aspirates at the same time. So remember what we were saying before about the difficulty down the mesolingual, does it join? So this is kind of making me feel like that they two join. Now, of course, it might just be because they're joined with sort of lateral canals, so it's just an indication for now, but it's something just in the back of my mind. We're going to think about possible confluence here. And once we have opened up the canal space, I'm now going to try and negotiate down to 0 with a size 10K file. I'm just going to adjust the rubber stopper here, and it is moving down a little bit easier in this case. And then when we hook the size 10K file up to our apex locator, we can see that it's not quite getting to 0, but we are negotiating down this canal relatively easy. And what I've noticed here is we've not got quite enough length on this size 10K file to negotiate further and to put our apex locator clip on at the same time. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a larger length K file. So I'm going to use a size 31. This gives me a little bit more shank on the K file for us to negotiate to the working length, but also gives me a little bit of space for me to clip the apex locator on this tooth. And again, as we sort of negotiate this size 31, this length 31K file down, we connect up the apex locator, and straight away we're through the apex. And again, it's the same situation as before. We're going to negotiate past the 0 reading, and then we're going to back it up, and then we're going to push it through again, and then we're going to back it up. And that's kind of like our sort of backstop, or second opinion as I like to call it, on our apex locator reading. And as we bring our size 10K file to check the working length, it's found to be about 24.5 millimeters. That's a 0 reading in the mesiobuccal canal, and it's the same protocol as before. Okay, we're going to use our glide path file at the 0 reading, that's 24.5 millimeters, and we're going to just shape that mesiobuccal canal. And then we're going to use our high flex 25 variable taper here, and you'll notice here that I have to take a few sweeps at this because it's quite difficult. This high flex file isn't quite reaching the working length as quick as we'd like to. So again, I've said this once, say it 1,000 times in the video, don't push it, just a couple of sweeps with your master apical file, that's the 25 variable, and then irrigation, and then lots of recapitulation with your size 10K file, and then the master apical file in the mesiobuccal canal reaches length. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to check confluence. So I'm going to take a GP point, I'm going to measure it to 24. I'm going to push this GP point down the mesiobuccal canal. I'm going to, this is going to make sure that I've shaped it correctly and it goes nicely to length, of course. And then I'm going to get a size 10K file. I'm going to place that in the mesiolingual canal, maybe put a little bend on the end. And I'm just going to negotiate this canal near to the working length so I can feel this kind of sort of sponginess. I'm going to measure the stopper. I'm going to pull this size 10K file out, and then I'm going to inspect the end of the GP point. And as we can see here, there is a mark that the size 10K file is created on this GP point. And this shows essentially where the two canals join. And what we want to do now is we want to just measure the K file to see at what point this joins. And as we can see here, the join is at 23 millimeters. So it's at this point we know that we've shaped this mesiolingual canal at the very least up to this point. So we're going to use our glide path file again at 23. We're going to use our master apical file, our 25 variable high flex, again up to 23. And there we have it. We've got two joining canals in the mesial root, and they're both been shaped and they're all ready to go. And now we're ready to negotiate and shape our distal canal. So the distal canal we're going to negotiate down with a size 10K file. And again, usually with the distal canals, they're quite wide, so sometimes these files just drop into these canals. And when we hook up the apex locator, although the apex locator is all over the place, sometimes I feel like I need a new apex locator sometimes. I don't feel like we're getting quite to that 0 reading, and also I can feel that kind of resistance from this file. So again, I'm not going to push it, I'm just going to pull the file out, going to measure to as far as we got, which was 23 millimeters, and then we're going to do the same thing we did with the mesiolingual and the mesiobuccal. We're going to use a glide path file just to shape up this coronal third, and then we're going to use a size 25 variable high flex file to further open it up. And I'm going to use this length 31 size 10K file then just to reach the apex of this tooth. And again, it's the same thing over and over again. We're going to reach to the end. We're going to just ever so slightly push the hand file out to the end of the apex. We're going to back it up so it's reaching 0. We're then going to push it out again, back it up, and that is your true reading that you have there with your distal canal. So we're going to just adjust the rubber stopper here, and we're going to measure the distal canal. And as we measure the distal canal with our size 10K file, the distal is seen to be 24 millimeters. And again, it's the same thing over and over again. We're going to use our final shaping protocol, size 1503 high flex, and our 25 variable high flex. And there we have it. We have all 3 canals shaped, all nicely done, and then we're ready for our cone fit radiograph. So as we set up our cone fit radiograph, I noticed that when we measure our distal cone and then we push its length, it isn't quite getting to that working length that we've come to expect. So the best thing to do is, if you're not quite reaching to length with your master cone, what you want to do is you want to just pull the master cone out, irrigate, recapitulate, and then just do some more shaping with the filing. when we place the distal cone to length, it feels like that it is now reaching the designated working length that we've worked out with our apex locator. And then essentially what we do then is we just place the cones in the other two canals. And when we look at the cone fit radiograph, we can see here that the end of the GP point in the distal canal is quite a significant way away from the radiographic apex. So when it's sort of maybe 1 to 2 millimeters away from the radiographic apex, you can kind of suggest that maybe this is at the correct working length. However, I feel like in this case it's just a little bit too far away for comfort. So in this case, the best thing for us to do is to take the cones out. We're going to re-irrigate, and I'm going to just recheck the working length. And I'm just going to put my size 10K file down the distal canal. As we recheck the working length, we get that 0 reading. We push it in and out, push it in and out. And then when we pull this file out, we can see that the working length is confirmed at 24 millimeters. So that's confirmed. What I am going to do is I am going to, again, reshape this canal. So I'm going to use my my size 25 variable high flex now to 24. So I'm going to shape it to 24, rightly or wrongly. And then I am going to place another GP cone in the distal canal at the 0 reading. And then when we take the radiograph, we can see that this is still looks like 1,000,000 miles away from the radiographic apex. So in this case, what we've done is we've highlighted a possible issue. You know, we think that the distal canal working length is incorrect. We've rechecked the working length many times. We've reshaped the tooth, and then as we place the GP cone to the correct length, as from the apex locator, it's still looking like it's a bit far away. And in this case, I think this is a really, really good example of trusting your apex locator over your radiographs. Of course, using your radiographs, it's a really, really important thing to do. You know, sometimes the apex locator, as you can see with mine, sometimes it's all over the show. But if you have checked this and checked it twice and it's still looking a bit too far on the x-ray, it's probably correct. And what I want to do is I just want to show you this picture. And again, if you're a common visitor to my channel, you'll see this picture many times. But you can see here that this was a tooth that I extracted, and in the sort of pre-op radiograph we took before we took the x-ray, before we took the tooth out, you can see that the obturation is quite short of the radiographic apex. But actually, when we pull the tooth out, we can see that the GP cone is way past the anatomical apex. So I think in this case, I am relatively happy that this is to length, even though it looks like 1,000,000 miles away. What I would do though is when I send this referral back to the dentist, I just want to be very sure and clear that they know that this is to the radiographic apex. And obviously that comes into your communication skills when you sort of communicate that. So once we know that the tooth's been shaped correctly, we're going to use our final irrigation protocol. Again, I like to use this 18th Ultra X irrigant activator. We use sodium hypochlorite activated, then we use EDTA 70% activated, and then I do a final rinse of sodium hypochlorite and we activate that, and we do that until the liquid we're using runs nice and clear, and then we're ready just to dry the canal space, ready for obturation. And the obturation's super predictable now. We're going to use this one fill with these visco tips. I'm going to fill the distal canal quite significantly, really, because there's a lot of space there. And then I'm going to use a size 10K file to length, and this kind of pushes the sealer to the apex, and it also stops any kind of air bubbles or any vapor lock that may occur as we push this GP cone to length. And again, like I've mentioned before, we're just going to very sort of gently tap this GP cone to length. We're not going to ram it all the way home. Don't want to risk extrusion. and we're just going to push it really, really nicely to length. And because the distal canal is quite wide, I'm going to place a second GP point adjacent to this master cone, just so we make sure that we have this canal all nice and filled up. And then again, I'm just going to use like a heated plugger here just to remove the excess, and I'm going to use a Mach 2 plugger just to sort of push this down. And again, the protocol is the same for the two other canals. Of course, we know that the mesibuccal canal is our main canal, shall we say it. So I'm going to obturate that one first. Again, I'm going to place the sealer with our visco tip, and then I'm going to push a size 10K file to length, and then I'm going to push the GP nice and slowly to length. And then as we have a little look, we can see down the mesilingual canal that actually fills up as well. And when we look at the post-op radiograph, again, it looks really, really nicely shaped, really nicely filled, no voids, but it is short of the radiographic apex. And as we'd mentioned before, you know, sometimes you're going to get that kind of little bit of a sealer puff out the end if you do push it to length. Sometimes you're not going to get that. I think this isn't all the way to the radiographic apex, but as I have mentioned before many times, it's not sometimes something that you really want to do, because as we mentioned before with this picture here, you can see that it's out the end. So I think the take-home lesson today is to, on balance, trust your apex locator over your x-ray, although it's really important that you use your apex locator in conjunction with your radiographs. And that's it. So as always, every week a live video is cast. Every Friday morning, one drops at 12 o'clock at night, every Friday GMT time. And, if you have any criticisms, in this case, you feel like what I've done is wrong, or you feel like you would have done something differently, the channel is about learning. So really, you got any criticisms, any comments, please put it in the comments section below. I try to answer everybody's comments. And, if you really like this channel, please like and subscribe. That's really important. It sort of bumps me up the logarithm and gets me more exposure. And if you love the channel, we've got a membership program. The membership program, it supports the channel, it keeps me independent. But also, if you love this content, you get early access to content. I'm usually about 2 weeks ahead, so if you join, you're going to get 2 extra videos ahead of everybody else. And I'd like to thank you for watching all the way through, and I will see you next week in the next video. Bye-bye.